Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Mr. Mikhail's Manor of Mischief, Magic, and Mystery, the podcast where we talk about music, the occult, and just day-to-day life. I am your host, Andrew Mikhail, and welcome to the 6M Podcast. And we are back. Welcome to episode 27 of Mr. Mikhail's Manor of Mischief, Magic, and Mystery, aka the 6M Podcast. Today, initiates and friends, I am joined by Jake. How do you say your last name? Lahniers?
Lahniers.
Lahniers.
Yeah, rolls off the tongue.
Yes, Lahniers. Jake is our first official, outside of the Lizard and the Wizard saga, our first official guest here at the Manor on the podcast. So give it up for Jake. Jake is the bass player of Serpents U.S, my band, obviously. You guys have heard enough about it. And also of Lividity and of Abolishment of Flesh. And what else would you say?
Dead Shore.
Dead Shore.
Absolutely.
Dead Shred Door. So how are you today, Jake? We've had quite the evening and the day, actually.
I'm doing pretty good. It was a fun night, and we've just been chilling all day and shooting this shit, exchanging ideas.
Yeah, so Jake is the recent addition to Serpents, and oddly enough, we've really never known each other until you joined up with us in the band.
True story. This is our third occasion hanging out together. The first time was we came up, we rehearsed for the show. We played at Reggie's, and I think it was the first time I met you, honestly. I mean, I was aware of who you were, and Miles had been working with you for a few years. Mm-hmm. And then we saw each other at NAMM, and then here I am today as a surprise for your birthday, man, hanging out.
Surprise for my birthday.
That's right.
So for those of you that don't know, Miles is the other guitarist in Serpents U.S, and rounding out the lineup with Jake, Miles, and myself would be drummer extraordinaire John King, and all of them, I am told right now from the Lizard that all of them were actually supposed to be here, which would have been interesting to say the least. I wonder if we could do a full band podcast. That'd be interesting, right?
Yeah. Record our video chats.
Yeah, that's always just like me being like, hey guys, we need to post more. We need to be more social on our socials. So, but yeah, Jake is another one of the guys that lives in Illinois. We're all pretty spread out from each other. So that's why, in case you're wondering, you're like, okay, how the fuck did these guys, how are they in a band if they don't hang out? Because Jake is actually a man of a long history in the music world, alike myself and alike Miles. And I remember when we were looking for a bass player, or ever since Miles, myself, and John were jamming, everybody would always talk about this Jake character.
Oh no.
And I was like, who's this Jake the Snake? And they're like, oh, it's Jake from Lividity. He's so cool. He's a cool guy. I'm like, yeah, whatever, dude. Just fucking, let's get to work. But then when the time came, I was like, yeah, who is this Jake guy that you keep talking about? Like, we gotta see what's going on here. And then, yeah, you came by for the first rehearsal, and everything has been fucking velvet since. I'm proud to have you on as the first outside guest, but you're always welcome here at the Manor. And that's our show. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. I appreciate the opportunity and the hospitality, of course. It's my second time as a guest in the Manor, and it's been awesome. It's a lovely place. I will say no more about it. Leave the rest to everybody's imagination.
Mischief, Magic, and Mystery is actually It's not just a title, folks.
It's a way of life.
Jake has been finding out the hard way what all of these things mean. We had quite the, like he was saying, we had people over. Well, the Lizard invited everybody over for my birthday, little gathering of sorts. And I was already 10 sheets to the wind when you came by. We were drinking a lot of whiskey, a lot of good tunes. And I was like, no.
Yeah, I'm not a whiskey drinker either, but I indulged for the night. It was
What do you like?
Wild Rose's bourbon, I think, was it?
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
So those of you that have been following the podcast, you were like, oh, I thought you were Mr. Keto, blah, 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 blah. Last night, I went completely off the rails, and the Lizard brought over a full bottle of Wild Rose bourbon, or Four Roses bourbon. I think it's called Four Roses.
Yeah, Four Rose.
And a bottle of Jack, and my good friend and spiritual guide, spiritual guru, Alan Alan Schlager. He brought over some Dark Matter coffee and some Three Floyds beer. I think it was Pear Bear Sour. Shout out to him and the Three Floyds company. And we polished off that whole bottle of bourbon. Like maybe right when you got there.
You towards the end. I probably had the last glass of the bottle.
Did you walk in with the gun situation? When I was waving the gun at people's faces?
Shortly before.
Yeah. We like to have a good time.
Yeah, it was a good party.
Don't shame me.
No.
How dare you?
You had the crown on your head. Who's going to argue with the king?
I described that to some folks. They don't know what you're talking about.
No, it's a good party. It was a good party.
So basically, I had gotten a king's crown for I didn't get it for myself. It was a gift. And basically on my birthday, on Thursday, I had it on for the whole day and the whole evening. And it really didn't feel like it was on me. So yesterday I was like, well, let's throw it back on. And I realized I was pretty buzzed, waving around a gun and wearing a king's crown. And then the Lizard promptly reminded me how insane I look. And I was just like, rock and roll, man. Rock and roll. So how are you enjoying your time here in the Serpents Kingdom? Yeah, I a little birdie has just told me that you heard about 20 new song ideas. What do you think about those?
I really like what's been flowing through your head. I think you have a lot of catchy riffs. You have a lot of different influence and styles coming together in a way that it makes the song a journey, man. I think every song should be a story, and you should feel it and then kind of build from there, man. There's definitely a couple of strong song ideas and a lot of potential there, man, like a giant puzzle scrambled up.
Am I the puzzle master?
Maybe.
I don't know.
Key master.
Well, that's the thing. Like a lot of people don't know this, but like a lot of the Serpents material really was written and recorded and I guess incepted just straight up from like my own, I guess, doing. So it's really, I've really never opened the door to anyone else to like chime in and say like, oh, let's write this part like this, or this part could be better, because it's always been a solo effort. And Miles, John, and Jake are actually a part of the band to the point where I'm like, hey, I want the new record to be a group effort. So I wrote a lot of these ideas, like 20 song snippets or riffs or whatever. And finally, after like however many years, like we're finally starting to piece things together, and I could not be more jazzed about it. So I don't want to be the puzzle master anymore. I just want to be the architect.
Yeah. I mean,
we sound insane. Like no joke, folks. We've had a long night and a longer day. It's pretty good. Living it up. Living after midnight. Do you know what that is?
Priest. Yeah.
Priestess. Is there a band called
Judas.
Priestess?
I think so.
Oh.
Are they female fronted, or am I just assuming too much?
How dare you?
Yeah.
So tell the folks a little bit about your journey. Sorry, I need my lozenges.
Should we start from Serpents and go back, or?
Yeah, tell them about your journey.
Yeah. So you asked about my time in Serpents, and I think it's been real fun, man. I like your style. I think we have similar experiences, even though maybe different paths over the last, I've been doing this maybe 15 years and I've been playing 20, but the underground is definitely a different beast, and it's a lot of DIY and good faith contracts, because if you're playing a show out of country, I'm not going to single out any country, but if a promoter reneges on the agreement, or a bootlegger wants to sell your merch in front of the show, and he's like, I'm going to call the cops on you. And I said, man, that's our image you're making money off of. You have to learn how to play the game different and adapt, because really it's just about being out there and playing music and creating art and sharing it,
Yeah.
So, you get the experience, but I like your vision for Serpents. And, I've been tight with Miles for a long time, so I've kind of watched his journey as he's been jamming with you the last couple of years. And so I've been on the sidelines watching and liking what you've been built up. So when you asked me to join, I kind of felt it was a no-brainer.
That's awesome. That's what's that SNL was like, that's high praise. That's high praise.
Yeah.
That's the Nicolas Cage thing. But so you are obviously currently like a member of Lividity. Now Lividity hasn't really been touring or recording, or like, I know you're with us and you just played what was that?
A couple weeks ago.
Yeah. You just played a fest, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's an underground fest in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. It was Slam Dakota, and I went and played with a band from Texas called Abolishment of Flesh. Good dudes, and I've kind of done some session work with them since 2018. I show up, I play the bass, and I've been doing vocals with them as well. You and Miles, right? Yeah, Miles has done a lot of work with us as well. Playing a couple fests, a couple tours. No, my tenure with Lividity started about 12 years ago. And
12 years.
12. I'm the young member of the group. I'm the newest member of Lividity. Yeah.
And are they writing and recording right now? I know you the singer is a police officer, correct?
This is true. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, has been for a long time. But
he's been like, I can imagine how busy that would be, like trying to be an officer and then like he does other things on the side and then also trying to like maintain a band.
Oh, and raising a family. I mean, everybody in Lividity has a career and a family. They're just normal dudes, and the band's been around since the early 90s. Dave started it with a 3-song cassette tape he recorded by himself, and he just started trading at shows, and he formed kind of the full group in 94. They started writing, recording, playing through the Midwest. And the singer's name is Vaughn, right? Yeah, the center singer. But Dave,
he was in another band.
Yeah, Vaughn came up through Deaden. That was kind of his bread and butter, which is how I came into the scene, was with Deaden. So I met Vaughn in the mid-2000s, and he was reforming this band. And that was kind of my introduction, and when I picked up the bass. So from Deaden, I joined a band called Human Artifacts, which is formed from Matt Bishop, who was the former singer for Lividity. He was kicked out. Vaughn replaced him. Matt forms Human Artifacts. I joined that group. So that was the first group I went overseas with. We did a short run with Gorgasm, played a couple fests, and then that fizzled out.
Now, these are, for the people listening, these are more like slam, death metal, guttural,
death metal,
like gore,
grindcore,
yeah,
brutal death.
The lyrical content is not for the faint of heart, I would say, but also at the same time, like Deaden,
yeah, Deaden.
They've been a staple in the underground death metal scene in the Midwest since what, the 90s you're talking about?
Yeah, mid 90s, 94, 95.
Was that like before the time like Flesh Grind and stuff like that, or around
exact
the
same time?
Awesome. Yeah, a lot of those guys from the old school death metal scene in, I guess, the Midwest, you can call it, because you're more of a Southern Illinois guy or Central.
It's Central. Yeah,
Miles
mid-state.
is Southern, right?
Central like me, yeah.
Okay. So you guys have had like a completely different thing down there, but like I remember back in the early 2000s, like how cool like all that shit was, and we were like, that's how I got into Flesh Grind.
Yeah.
And I befriended Jim from Jungle Rot. I think he was in Flesh Grind for a little bit. And even we had a really good death metal scene back then. And we still do, obviously.
Well, absolutely. Rich from Flesh Grind had United Guttural, and that yeah, dude, that released
that's what it is.
Deaden and Lividity. So they were on UG. I mean, they all worked together.
I remember that. I remember like being in high school and getting these demos, or like going to Record Breakers, which is now Reggie's, and you were talking about, we just played Reggie's Rock Club and in Chicago, and Record Breakers was like the place to go, at least in the burbs. And like I remember just seeing like all the gore, like underground death metal tapes and shit, and like all the bootleg videos that they would have on the wall, and you could like watch, you could preview the bootleg. Do you remember that shit?
No, because honestly, I didn't even stumble upon that stuff until probably the early 2000s, 01, 02.
Like VHS bootlegs, dude. Like it was fucking pretty rad.
Yeah, I had bootleg wrestling tapes, like pro wrestling, but not music.
That's why I said Jake the Snake. We're both wrestling fans. Should we just turn this into a wrestling podcast?
I could, bro. I could tell I could tell the whole history.
Who was your favorite wrestler and why? How about that?
Oh, I don't have a single favorite. You'd have to ask me what age, and I could probably give you a couple. Any age, throw it out.
Attitude Era, I guess, because that's the one everybody is nostalgic for.
Well, give me a year. Throw out a year.
I don't know.
Because once I started watching ECW, my appreciation of the game went to another level.
And you yourself are a man of the arts when it comes to physical activities.
Killing, you can say it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Martial arts. Martial, meaning war-like. So
martial law?
Yeah. Well, military rule.
Jesus. Yeah. We're going left. But so you're a fan of wrestling, and then you dove into what?
Okay, so growing up watching wrestling and teaching myself the sharpshooter and the chicken wing and all that stuff. When I got into high school, I amateur wrestled, so I learned like the actual sport, of collegiate wrestling. And it's a brutal sport.
Like Roman wrestling?
Yeah, I did that. I went to nationals doing Greco-Roman wrestling.
Oh yeah, fuck! I forgot that video. Yeah, for those of you that don't know, well, you're a lot more serious than I am, but we both wrestled.
Yeah. Did
Miles wrestle?
I don't think so. He rode dirt bikes in the cornfield.
Hell yeah.
He played guitar. So
Jake and I, okay, so we both came up, I guess, in the death metal scene in the Chicagoland or the Illinois Midwest era, whatever.
Yeah, Midwest.
We both enjoy wrestling, and we both wrestled, but like more traditional wrestling, not like WWF wrestling. But we'll get back into that. You still haven't answered who's your favorite wrestler. WWF Attitude Era, I'm not very familiar with ECW because...
Well, let's say, I mean, I was a huge Stone Cold Mark, of course. You know, he was what was up.
That's the bottom line. So you're a Stone Cold guy?
Yeah, I liked him. You know, I liked a lot of different wrestlers. I like Bret Hart, even when he went all evil Canadian. You know, he still spoke the truth, and he had it, man. He was a great wrestler.
Were you still watching wrestling when Owen died?
Yeah.
That was weird.
Yeah, it really was.
But he fell from the top, right? Like
from the
ceiling.
rafters. Yeah.
Fucking crazy.
Hit his head on the ring post from the fall. It was basically, you know, instant death.
I think the worst part about it is like he died in like costume. Was the blue meanie?
Blue blazer.
Blue blazer.
Yeah. Loved him when I was a little kid in the 80s when he first was a blue blazer. Yeah.
That was I remember that persona. That was actually a cool thing.
Yeah.
I remember how cool it was when I found out it was Owen Hart. Like, oh shit. But guess what was my favorite wrestler?
Who's that?
You have to guess.
Oh. Of the same era?
Yeah.
Triple H.
Weird.
Why?
Why would you say that? No, my favorite wrestler from back then was The Undertaker.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Especially like the Ministry of Darkness.
Yeah.
Like, and the Lizard brings this up all the time because sometimes she'll catch me watching like old like matches and like, or like entrance, like the themes. And she'll be like, what is that? Because it sounds like Serpents. And I'm like, it's the Undertaker theme song. Because I'm a sucker for orchestras. I'm a sucker for choirs. And give me some demon Latin speak. And fucking Taker was doing it all. But they lost me when he turned into the American Badass.
The biker. The underbiker.
A part of me died when that happened. I won't
think
lie.
A part of him died too.
All I remember is like I was like religious about wrestling for a while. Like, I'm pretty sure in this basement I have like a Iron Sheik autographed 8x10 in Arabic like my grandfather got because he saw the Iron Sheik at a beach. It's like, yo, give me that because you don't need that. You don't like wrestling. Because he was like, oh, I met this guy. And for those of you that don't know, I'm Middle Eastern. So like my grandfather was like speaking to him in Arabic and he gave him a 8x10 or whatever. So I've been like religiously watching it. And then when all of a sudden I hear either at the time it was Limp Bizkit's Rollin' or Kid Rock's American Badass. And I was like, what is this? And then all I see is Taker on a bike in like all denim. And I literally remember going, I'm done. A piece of like a literal, like, I think that's when my childhood died.
Oh. Like finding out Santa Claus isn't real.
Exactly.
Allegedly not real.
Allegedly. Any kids out there listening? Santa Claus is coming.
He's as real as you want him to be, just like anything.
Yeah. Yeah, just like Kane being Undertaker's brother.
I remember when that happened. It was spectacular. Funny story. Kane's real name is Glenn Jacobs. And before he was Kane, he was Isaac Yankum, Jerry Lawler's dentist, who was billed from Decatur, Illinois. In our phone book when we were kids, there was an Isaac Yankum that lived on blah, 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 Main Street. And I was like, oh, Kane's from Decatur. Yeah. I drive by his house on my bicycle. I'd ride by. And
was he like straight up from Decatur?
Probably not.
Oh, damn. I actually met, you at the party yesterday, you met Al. And Al and I used to do a lot of these stagehand gigs, and we would do them for the WWE all the time. Well, not all the time, but
when they came through.
Yeah. So one time we were walking through the locker room, and we were instructed to not bother anybody because in the locker room or hallway that they set up to be like a, wait for the match or like watch the matches as they're happening.
Gorilla position.
Yeah. So like they're all talking and hanging out. And I remember I opened the door to get to the gig and Al and I were walking up, and you just smell like this like musk, like strong cologne smell, and I'm like, what is that? And we're walking up the stairs, and we're getting to like the corner, and you just see this huge leg just like right at the corner, and it's somebody in a suit, and we realized it was Big Show, and he's the one that's all fucking musked up and shit. And he was actually like nice, because we were instructed to not bother anybody. He was like, hey guys, whatever, you know. And they're all the wrestlers were sitting in a circle, just chatting in the hallway, like sitting face to face to each other. And they're watching the feed of like what's happening live, like in the arena. And I'm looking around, and it's Big Show, Mark Henry, Kane, and a couple of the new guys, I think like Roman Reigns and shit. And I just remember like seeing Kane, because like if you look in this studio somewhere, there is a Kane mask with full hair and everything, which you kind of have, his old hair.
Right. The devil's curly hair.
Yeah. So it's like, I like, he looked up, and I was just like, and then my childhood came back.
Wow.
And I got hard. No, I'm just kidding. But
no, you can get a lie to kick it.
It's okay. I'll fucking...
That's a lot of legendary men you walked into. I bet the energy and the charisma and the aura was intense.
It was actually... The way they were talking to each other was like, you could tell it was intense, but like you could tell that they were like talking shop, you know?
Right, very professional.
Yeah, and it's like they were watching the match and talking about business and whatever. And we were, like I said, we were instructed to not even look at them, but they were like nice. And it was an interesting experience. It was interesting to see like how it's all built, obviously, because we had to build everything and then stow it away and all this shit.
Yeah.
And like, I remember Big Show that night, like went through a table, and that's a fucking real table, not cut, not anything. That shit, like, it took two guys to lift the tables, like it's heavy tables. And I remember being like, oh my God, dude. Like, because they had like literally like surplus of shit that they could break. And, you know, some of them looked a little flimsy, you know, for the little guys, but like we lifted up the broken one that he went through, and that shit was not cut. That was like, I was just like, holy shit. Because everyone like growing up was like, that's just fake. They cut it. You know, the chairs are, you know, bent. I was literally holding the chairs, the tables, and I'm like, there is no...
No, it's real. I was the opposite kid. I was the one going, no, man, those chairs.
Me too.
They take them for real. And they did. There's no secret to it. Yeah. They would beat the shit out of each other to play out a scenario where people are fake beating the shit out of each other. The only way to make it look good is they have to really kind of get in there, you know?
Yeah.
It's like watching it's like watching any martial art demo, you know? You kind of got to communicate and understand what's going to happen to make it look good. But I've actually done a little bit of in-ring pro wrestling training. I did it a year or two ago.
Oh, shit. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I was going to maybe start doing it before I got too old to do it.
How tall are you?
6'3".
Yeah, so you're a big dude.
Yeah,
you could do it.
Oh, for sure. About 270. So, you know, we talked about wrestling. I did wrestling. Then I did judo and competed and won trophies. Did a little MMA. A lot of weight lifting and training, and a lot of injuries. So in my late 20s, I came back and started learning yoga and qigong and karate, and picked up my training, and I've kind of stuck with it. So I get in the ring to train this wrestling, and everybody's floored that I've never done it before, because you know, I understand it, and I'm doing everything real quick, and I'm kind of teaching them how to move better. Oh, you want to roll? Tuck your shoulder this way and tuck your leg, and boom, you're back up.
Yeah.
And everybody looking at me like I'm some sort of, you know, just a guru, or they're all calling me the natural. So I was going to become Jake from State Farm and come out there and heal everybody, you know, talk about this person needs insurance because they're going to have a heart attack, and I have my loaded briefcase I'm going to hit people with and cheat.
Well, that was your actual stage name?
Yeah,
Jake from State Farm?
Exactly. I could make it work.
Don't sue State Farm. No,
That'd be the whole thing. If I beat them, I'm gonna force them to sign a contract, and I'm gonna stuff it in their mouth.
Better copyright this idea. Somebody's
No.
gonna take it.
I've got better ideas. That's why I'm running with Jake from State Farm.
So you did. You were showing these guys like, what were you showing them? Like judo and stuff, or you're just showing them how to like take the moves better?
Yeah. Well, so like one guy's running a training session. He says, "Well, this is how you fall." Blah blah blah. So I'm telling him a couple ways. Maybe move your arm this way a little better because it's safer to fall that way. Or guys will respond and they say, "I want to work on this arm lock." So I'll say, "Well, this is how you want to do it if you're going to do it for real." And then from there, you can kind of pull it back so you don't hurt anybody. But if you don't know how to actually do it, then it's going to look kind of corny and extra choreographed because, people go out there and learn the fake stuff without ever having learned the real stuff that it was kind of born out of.
How many years you do this? Or you only did it a couple times?
Yeah, just a couple sessions.
Yeah.
I was ready to get in and start doing matches because pro wrestling is a lot like rock and roll and music, man.
Mm-hmm.
There's a pageantry to it and a performance. You want to get out there and engage the crowd and play to them. And the technical part is that kind of stage play. It's that presentation,
It's also like it's a lot like rock and roll in you have the different personas, the pageantry, as you say, and if you're doing it correctly, you're taking the audience through these emotions, like you're taking them through a journey. And like one thing that I hated when I worked those WWE gigs is that like a lot of it is scripted, but the audience, like seeing it in real life and seeing like how they execute things and seeing, even the fucking ropes, like that shit hurts. That's tight.
Yeah.
The only thing that was like, oh, I never thought of this was like the ring itself was like bouncy. And I was like, that makes sense. But like you look in the crowd and like that night, so to speak, like you flip through the script and you're like, huh. And then you see the crowd during the show and they're like, somebody's taking the dive, or like I said, if a big show goes through a table, everyone's like concerned and shit. And I'm just like, this is crazy. And that's like what we do with music. We take people through the table throwing or whatever, it's
high spot is what we call it.
High spot.
In wrestling, it's called a high spot. It's bringing you to the peak of that emotional response. So in metal, maybe it's a breakdown or a big build up, and then the shit just busts out.
It's all very sexual.
Absolutely,
just primal. Build up,
very primal.
Build up that tension, and then there's the release. That's I would say that's a lot of the Serpents influence, I guess. It's like that sexuality. The serpent, the phallus.
It's very primal, man. It's a motivating drive in human nature. I think we're motivated through our libido, right? Our sex drive wants us to do things. That's kind of like the act of creation, right? Or yang energy. And then you have the thanatos, or the destructive nature that humans engage in, where we want to tear down and destroy it, like yin,
Thanos?
Yeah, thanatos, death.
Just kidding. So, speaking more on that, you said you do yoga, like,
yeah.
Well, tell us a little bit more about that. So, obviously, we're both, in this, I guess, physical attack mode kind of realm of music where it's like we're doing that, but then you have this other side of you, and I've dabbled in like Kundalini yoga and fucking other shit, but you're like way more in tune with that stuff.
Sort of.
You're a teacher?
Yeah. What I do is Chinese yoga. So, see, really yoga, man, there's thousands of different schools. There's a yoga school that's doing math, with the essence of yoga.
Like actual math?
Yeah, exactly.
Shit.
Yeah, it's a form of yoga. It's just, it's a unifying practice, right? Mind, body, and spirit. It's getting yourself to come into harmony. So the way I learned yoga was from a like a Qigong understanding, energy work. But I came to this through athletics and martial arts, wrestling, weightlifting, and going real hard and breaking my body down to terrible, unnatural levels. So I started learning kind of to do this meditative healing work, slow movement, proper breathing, learning how to tap into natural energy, that's all around us. I could show you in person, but it's a little trick to have you test your chi between your palms.
This is the one where you like squeeze your thumb?
No.
So being in this world, obviously we're both musicians, we both gig. You're more like your side, I guess, would you call it a hobby? What would you call it? Like your job?
I've tried to make it more my job lately. I've worked construction and worked in bars, and I've gone to school a little bit. But I think I've always been addicted to working out. And since I'd never became like a pro wrestler, I've kind of fractured in all these different avenues of expression, through music. It's my art. Weightlifting gets out the aggression. Martial arts is kind of the primal, warrior gene that I've inherited. And then learning this energy stuff kind of rounds out my my physical fitness and well-being. I'm a truth seeker. I'm always trying to find the next level of engagement and perception.
So what I was getting at is that both of us are in these specific scenarios in our life, and then we all got hit with the virus, the pandemic. How does that affect? Obviously, like I was saying, we're not gigging, so that has affected us that way. But how has the pandemic affected something like, wrestling or yoga? Like you're addicted to working out. I'm addicted to working out. I stopped working out in March, and someone who is addicted, like I know how that fucking feels. But like this is like your other living,
right?
So like how did that really affect you?
It probably sounds bad, but to be honest, I think it was kind of a much needed vacation.
It's not bad at all.
Yeah, since I've the last couple of years turned it more into a job, or maybe transitioned into a career where I train people, and I've always liked teaching this stuff as I've learned it, and I've continued learning and growing in that aspect of my life. But I never thought to monetize it until now. Yeah. Because I have the knowledge to spend, and I really think I can help people, but I know it's a weird career, and COVID has messed up all of it, Yeah. Martial arts, self-defense, wrestling, judo. I mean, it doesn't get any more intimate than that outside of what's considered
body-to-body
intimate.
contact, yeah.
Right. In an uncomfortable situation, the whole point is to be able to protect yourself when somebody invades your personal space. And, I mean, how do we weather the storm and be cautious and understanding of the new social paradigm when the whole concept is, what do you do when somebody is literally in your face trying to cause you harm? Yeah. So trying to find that balance is where I'm working now. But for the first few months, honestly, I just kind of chilled at home, and my heart rate went over 100, and I didn't exercise very much, but it's probably good to relax because I go pretty hard sometimes. I work out 6 hours a day sometimes.
Yeah. Would you say that with the way things are going, like in our industry, everybody is taking to the internet and like doing live shows, live streaming, Zoom, like even some folks are turning to OnlyFans, selling their nudes and whatnot. Would you, hey, don't put it past me. Couple more months of this shit and I might even entertain it. Feet pics, hit me up. But
desperate times call for desperate measures.
Exactly. Or necessity is the mother of all invention.
I agree with that. Yeah.
So with that, would you consider, I mean, is there even a possibility to do this in this new, I guess, I'm not calling it the new normal because that's what they want people to think.
Right.
So would you entertain that? Are there people doing that even?
Yeah, I really do think, I don't think this will be kind of the normal forever, but I do think it's opened people's eyes and realized that there are going to be some adaptations, I've seen a lot of trainers and teachers go virtual, Skype lessons, video lessons, bands, have you noticed and talked about, have maybe done Skype recordings or remote, like if we get together in a practice room, they do a remote concert. I've seen like Catatonia did something like that in a studio. So I really do see maybe the deep future of virtual concerts, where maybe somebody's going to put on a headset and we can just chill from home and jam, and we can all connect in cyberspace. But I don't want it to be everything, because I really do love the organic nature of being in front of somebody and playing music and feeling the crowd and the crowd feeling the band. And it's really a beautiful experience that I don't want to see go away.
Yeah. That's another thing is like when we play live, like even the show you played with us before the world went to shit, like one of my things is like I just love like getting into people's faces and like, you know, pulling them in and like almost like while we're playing, like giving them like a half hug or like, you know, smelling the sweat in the air. Like nothing is better than walking into like a packed sold out show, having that like weird steam in the air and then people's sweat and cigarettes, people smoking in the bathrooms. And it's just like scary to think that potentially could go away. And it's scary to see how everyone is like normalizing, like, yeah, let's just do it digital. And like a lot of people have asked us, like Serpents, like, when are you guys going to do a live stream show, this and that? And you know, like I've talked to the guys a bunch of times and I've entertained the idea. Like, do you remember like when COVID hit? Like I was right on that shit. I was like, let's try and be like the first
right
streaming band. And then like now, like bands like Suicide Silence, shout out to them, and others are like making like tours out of this. And it's crazy to see, but it's cool to see in a good way, but also scary because you don't want to see the classic rock show go away. And the same goes for UFC. Like UFC, have you seen the latest matches with the no crowds?
No crowd, yeah. Pro wrestling is kind of the same thing. No crowd live shows. You see a lot of attempts to adapt to this, and I mean, from the beginning, I don't think people anticipated the long haul of all of this. I basically assumed no more live anything, entertainment, sport, art, public gathering, at least until next year. And people keep trying to maybe buck this, and I understand the drive and the need. And hell, I played a show 2 weeks ago in a bar in South Dakota. And I kept my distance and I wore a mask and I brought my own water. You know, I just was intelligent about it. I sung through my own mic, and I took the situation for what it was, because I knew it might be my only chance to play a gig this year.
Yeah.
But I do.
We don't have a Rogan test, so I couldn't get you tested. But it's been 2 weeks, so
yeah. I've quarantined, and I know you guys have. And see, we're 6 feet apart right now.
Exactly.
For the record, I do see though, the underground always prevails, and I think as this thing progresses and we learn more about it, people will start to gather, maybe in small scale, and work up from there. You know?
Yeah. I mean, anyone who's listened to this podcast for the past few months has known that the Lizard and I literally haven't left the Manor, so to speak. And even yesterday's gathering was like an odd happening, like from our perspective, because we really, like I told you earlier today, I was like, we kind of bursted the bubble because like we felt like we were living like Bubble Boy and Bubble Girl, you know?
Yeah.
So it was really nice to like get back to like human interaction. And, you know, anyone who's heard this podcast for the past few episodes has noticed like a change in mindset, a change in, I guess, even the spirit. And, you know, you're saying people are adapting, the underground is adapting to this, whatever's thrown at us. And, you know, there is also an adapting of like the general consciousness and like people's minds. So it's not, you know, yeah, there's a need for, you know, crowdless UFC fights and this, but I really think there's two sides to this story at the moment. You have the people that are declaring this the new quote unquote normal, and then you have people that are constantly evolving and adapting to try and bring back humanity into what we're doing, but in a safe manner. And like you said, you just played a show, you did it safely. You have bands like Great White, they're just fucking reckless.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's like we just said, necessity is the mother of all invention, but it's not only physical adaptation or adaptation to like save your career, but you and I have talked earlier today. It seems like people are adapting on a spiritual level too. And you and I, we riff on a lot of this spiritual stuff, and you're probably one of the only guys in the band that really can get down with this motive, I guess. But you've noticed something too, and you've said it yourself. When quarantine started, like you know, earlier today, you were saying that it really took you for like a mind bender, right?
Yeah, I think it was this has been a great time for a forced introspection, you know. My life was kind of semi-monk like before this, you know. I went and I taught my classes, trained a few people, went to the gym. If there was something music related, I would practice that and work with whomever for whatever. So COVID shut down the gym and it shut down the music. So all that was left was me kind of just wandering in my own mind at home. So for a couple months there, you know, I got deep, and it's fine because I've always been the kind of kid to get lost in his own imagination. And it was interesting to see the world kind of come down to my level where they're forced to look inside themselves. You know, they can't escape and run away from their problems or run away from confronting who they are. So I think maybe through this process, we're getting kind of an awakening, and people I know that can get down, you know, like you guys, and I've got other friends, and they're noticing this change too. And I think it's causing a kind of a knee-jerk reaction and an outburst, which we're seeing affect really all the nations of society. But I think it's a good thing, you know. I think we're connected now more than ever. And if you look at the course of human history, it's pretty bloody and disgusting, you know. Both of us play underground death metal music, and we try to point out those ugly truths, not to glorify, but to remind people that's who we are and we can be better. And I think we're starting to see all the kind of nastiness get exposed.
Well, that's the thing, is any transformation worthwhile comes with great pain. Like, you know, we talk on this podcast about Temet Nose and like the hell I put myself through to create the art. And it's like, you know, there's the episode called The Great Awakening where I literally talk about what's happening right now is, if successful, going to lead to something extraordinary, like from the collective mindset. And granted, people are, I hate saying this, but waking up, you know, on their own terms, on their own time. So you're getting like delayed, you know, growth, but you start to see like plainly, oh, you have this side, and I'm not talking politics. Stop before you start. Stop. But you have this side of people that are hyper aware and hyper, like, I guess even hyper in pain because they want to help the world. And then you have the other side that haven't really embraced this yet. And
denial. It's hyper denial, you know, self-delusion.
Yeah.
Because the truth is ugly. And like you said, to grow is a painful experience, but when you can come through that evolution, you're elevated, you know, you're to another level of experience.
It's like a global ego death that needs to happen. You know, like a lot of occult literature talks about self-reflection or, you know, changing your inner self, because obviously how can anything else make sense unless you understand yourself? And I think what's happening now is people being so wrapped up in the, you know, online world, they're kind of losing what it is or what they know to be the self. And when you were telling me about when COVID hit, whatever, and you kind of being grounded, You had to look inside and identify who you are, what your purpose is, what are you doing right now? What are you doing today, tomorrow? And, the Lizard and I, we've been very vocal that we haven't gone in depth on the podcast about this stuff, but we've been constantly refining or transmutating what it is to be ourselves, as a couple or ourselves as an individual. And even you don't even have to be spiritual or even a yoga instructor or anything. It's just, you literally just have to look around you and say, am I causing this rift or am I a part of it? You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. No, absolutely, my friend. There was, I think, a collective introspection. So we're seeing kind of a hive mind of sorts where people are seeing the collective history and reflecting on that. But now we've had this chance to get the internal, personalized reflection as well. And, the more you dig and deeper you go, you see the big problems of the world and it becomes overwhelming. So what can you control? And you start with yourself and you work your way on out, right? You take care of yourself and then your house and then your family, then your neighborhood, the things within your sphere of influence.
Yeah. And that's even applicable to, our music. It's sort of taking an idea or a riff and then elaborating on it and refining it to match with what you're feeling, what you're thinking. You're like, oh, this is an evil sounding song, so I'm going to elaborate on that. Or this is a beautiful song and I want to elaborate on that. And every song and idea has its own moment and its own style and its own taste. And people really that aren't, musicians or whatever, they really, I guess it's not that easy to look at. But, we were talking earlier off the mic about positive and negative and identifying something as positive and negative. And we just see more things in our ethos that are created out of overall negative emotion, negative energies, where, even I had to self-reflect and understand that, okay, our purpose as the band or my purpose as an artist and the purpose of this song is of a positive, intention or positive energy. And I had to sit here and reformat and refigure that shit out, just like these songs that we got cooking. It's all right, what do I want this to be? And as a musician or artist, you kind of, or even a painter, comedian, whoever, you sit there and you look at everybody else, you're like, come on, fuck it, why can't you see it like this? You create your own world, you create your own destiny. Everything is, obviously, things happen to people that are out of their power, but it is what you make it. What is what defines you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We've all had bad things happen to us. It's either you dwell on it or you use it as a learning experience. You're like, this is how I can protect myself, my family. This is how I can be a better person. And, COVID, I think, really hit people, obviously, across the globe, all at the same time. But I think people are sort of getting to that realization, okay, this happened to us. This happened to my business, happened to our band. How can we mold this to be better? And that's why I'm making an OnlyFans.
So you're going to do the free teaser page?
All feet.
All feet.
All feet, bro.
There's a huge market for it. I hear. Allegedly.
Hey, there ain't no shame in the game, my friend. But let your freak flag fly, as my friend says.
Absolutely, man. Be yourself.
By yourself. Oh, shit.
Stay away from me.
Stay away from me. But I don't know, man. It's a weird time.
Yeah, very.
And I think people like us are only getting weirder, but for a good reason.
Yeah. I like weird. Weird is exciting, you know. Weird it gives opportunity, you know. I'm always looking for opportunity. I think most people are.
Outside the box.
Yeah.
You have to think outside the box. And that was another reason that when this whole thing started, I was like, well, we should do some we should try and figure out like how to do a show, but like streaming. And like at the time, there was really no information about that stuff on the line. And I was like, well, fuck. How can I do it with like the lag and shit? And then I was like, oh, Apocalyptica just did one. Oh, Devin Townsend just did one. And then Suicide Sound. I'm like, all right, I think everything's squared away. But Jake and I, and I'm sure Miles and John, were really of that vein of like we want to smell the sweat in the air. We want to feel the drums fucking pounding on the chest. We want to see the people getting, bumped up against the fucking the raft. I don't know, what would you call it? The
guardrail.
Guardrail. There you go. See, I've been in show business for many years, and I don't even remember what that's called because I've had so many people yell at me to go fucking go build it up, go put it up. But
barricade.
Barricade. That's what it is. So I think that about answers where we stand. I don't really think we're going to end up doing one. What do you think?
Yeah, if the opportunity arises. Yeah,
keep going.
It's the wrap it up music. Yeah, I love live performing. I love playing with people who love live performing because there's just something organic about it. You're creating music out of nothing, and it's truly a magical moment,
Magic.
Absolutely, dude. It's a form. I don't want to say it's like a religion, but it's a religious or spiritual experience, man. The music brings people together. You've toured all over the world. I've toured all over the world. Music is the universal language.
Mm-hmm.
You can communicate with somebody through music that you can't any other way. They're blah, 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 and we sound like fucking monkeys too. But through the music, we can perfectly understand each other, man.
Yeah.
And that connection is something that's amazing.
And it's all open to interpretation. Like somebody can hear a song and be like, this makes me want to fucking kill people. And then somebody can hear the song and be like, oh my God, that arrangement is fucking beautiful. Like we were talking about Behemoth earlier today. And, so many people have differing opinions on that most recent album. And, the main takeaway I had from it was like, well, it's more rock and roll based. It's got that rock and roll simple formula, but with Behemoth riffs, Inferno's drumming, shit like that.
The album has a good flow to it, man. The songs have a good feel. And it doesn't have to be complicated to be good. And because it's complicated doesn't make it good. A good song is a good song. It's all on how you kind of arrange it, construct it, and what you put into it. What are you trying to say here? And you mentioned that a few minutes ago. And I've kind of had that introspective moment as a musician. It was like, after all these years, what am I really doing? What am I trying to say? So I appreciate the idea of taking the art, even as extreme or satirical as it can be sometimes, and say, well, what's the overall point I'm trying to get people to think about here?
Yeah. But like, and I'll get back to the Behemoth thing, but like, that's kind of like what Lividity does. It's like, yeah, if you look at it at face value, or even any other band, I'm just using your other band as a reference. It's like, yeah, if you look at it face value and if you take it as is, it has a message, it has whatever. But like someone could listen to that that's going through a tough time and they don't want to do evil things. They don't want to like murder their family and shit like that. Like we've all heard gore grind shit. I remember listening to a song about somebody killing his wife, cutting her open, shitting in her stomach, and sewing her back up, putting her in the oven and baking her and eating her. Like,
just ridiculous. It's so absurd. It becomes kind of it's like satire. How far can you take this stuff? Yeah. But the sad thing is some sick human has probably done it somewhere.
Some sick human has done it, probably. But then you have the people that don't have to do it because they listen through the song and they live through that experience, like reading a little book. You know what I mean? Like that actually saves some people from doing horrible things because they're like, huh, yeah, that's a cool song. You know what I mean? Like,
right. It's just an outlet for trying to process, negativity. There's a lot of negative stuff happens in our world, and people don't know how to process it. So it's a way to tune into that. And I always say it's stories, man. David Fincher won an Oscar for Seven, and we write a song about it, and because the title is a little obscene, we want to get protested by feminists. It hasn't happened in a long time, but they say, they're promoting rape, blah, blah, blah. People write books about it and win awards, but because it's music, all of a sudden it's some sacred medium and we're bad for doing it. Cannibal Corpse was writing these songs 30 years ago. Yeah. So the whole death metal genre kind of covers the ugly animal side of human nature, just the worst.
Well, that goes back to like this is what I was trying to say about the Behemoth record is like people had thought it was the worst thing that they've ever done, and then people thought that it was genius.
Yeah.
And it's really all open to interpretation, and I think that's the beauty of what we do. And even wrestling, like we were just talking about wrestling, like some people thought it was fake, some people thought it was real, and I just think that as the whole world at the moment is like, that's what it's like right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
More than ever. Yeah. It's like everybody, it's like the new Behemoth record. People are either like, yeah, this is all great, and then you have people that are like, the world is ending.
Well, it wasn't what they expected, so it makes things polarizing. Growing up watching wrestling, it gave me a great bullshit detector. And bro, you're absolutely right. This would be my only comment on politics is it's all a show. Just like wrestling, we're all getting worked, is what it's called. Yeah. They're kayfabing, and the real politics happens over lunch and behind doors, and the stuff they show you on TV is just sensationalism, just to rile you up. It's a story of this is the good guy, that's the bad guy, and we don't like each other, and that's just not the truth of it.
We're society built on stories.
Absolutely.
Like
a culture, a civilization built on stories.
And, you yourself are of Viking blood, Native American blood, right?
Yeah.
Am I right?
Yeah. Mostly.
So a lot of these cultures were perpetuated around campfires, these stories, these legends.
Yeah.
And, it's these days, granted, you have a lot of bullshitters telling a lot of bullshit stories, but if you look at it, everything in our world is stories. I haven't thought about that till right now. Like, it's very cool to think about that. And, oddly enough, I know you were talking about politics. I was watching an interview the other day. It was, remember the Ali G show?
Loved it. Guy's
Sacha
genius.
Baron Cohen. Yeah. So I remember being a kid and be like, who is this guy? Like, I thought it was real. Like, I was like, this guy is weird. And he was interviewing Trump on his show for like a couple minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember him asking Trump back then, this was like the 90s. He's like, because he had a gag about ice cream. Do you remember that?
Ali G?
Yeah. He had a gag. He had the segment was like, he was trying to sell like an ice cream that, like melt guard. And he was trying to get investors to invest. So he had Trump on it. And he asked Trump, like, what's the most important thing in the world? And Trump's first answer, and it could be different now, but his first answer was music.
Really?
And that fucking blew my mind because I'm like, God damn, dude. Like, he's right. Like, that was his first gut impression. His instinct was music.
It's beautiful.
So fucking let us play.
Yeah.
God damn it. No, I'm just kidding.
The world needs us. Like you said, man, those legends around the campfires was interwoven with music,
Exactly.
Beating on drums, playing on grandpa's guitars. I seized the grandpa's guitars.
Dude, that's an old guitar. He's pointing at my Syrian oud.
Oof.
But you have people like that from back then that have perpetuated stories through music, campfires, whatever. But then you also have your modern storytellers. Like we were talking about Manson earlier.
Yeah.
You were telling me that he was more of the kind of, what was your word? Beatnik? Kind of?
Yeah, by his own definition, he was born in the 30s, and he was like the beatnik generation. He was more on the periphery of the whole civil rights uprising hippie movement, and not the direct source like commonly believed. He was around all that, and he probably knew a lot more than he ever let on. But the 60s were crazy, and I don't think people realize who didn't live through it or haven't spent time to educating themselves about it, how on the brink the United States was back then. And essentially when all that Manson stuff happened, they were able to politicize it and say, look, the hippies have gone crazy. They're going to break into your house and kill everybody. We're starting to hear that kind of rhetoric today, aren't we?
Yeah.
And it's got different masks, it's not one thing. It's targeted to specific groups and whatever their boogeyman is. But, you can see all this kind of stuff we're dealing with now.
Repeating.
All the seeds they were planted way back then. Bro, I'm watching Oliver Stone's Untold History right now, and all this stuff post World War II with these agencies. See, I don't even want to talk about it now.
It's all good.
Yeah. No, nobody cares about me, man. I'm just some weed smoker that thinks too much. I'm no influencer.
I care about you.
I know, buddy.
And you know what? You're good people. Like, I wouldn't have you in the band if you weren't good people. So I can attest to your character. I mean, I'm not the best person.
Yeah.
So maybe that's in your detriment. But I don't know, man. Like, we were talking about mainly how Manson kind of grew this following because he was like a cool guy with a guitar.
Yeah.
Like, real cool, like.
Spoke through the music, man. The hippies found him, and this guy had been out of jail for like 20 years, in and out, stealing cars, petty theft, whatever. So he comes out, he learns music. He's in his 30s. MK Ultra probably did tests on him, but I think he's his own mind for his own experience.
But he's definitely a rare mind.
Oh, absolutely, man. He spent about 70 years of his life in incarceration. Who has that perspective in our modern society? A lot of that under lock and key, solitary confinement. So imagine the power of his thought when he's so physically confined, So he gets out there and these hippies see him. And of course the girls like the music and he likes the girls. So it's Haight-Ashbury, man. They're all doing drugs and getting down and partying and playing music and orgies and
the good old days.
Yeah, right. So he gets in with the music. They move to Hollywood, and then he kind of starts play acting this commune thing, and then you get drug dealers coming around, gun runners, bikers, and it just really was the fringes of society. But they played with the kind of the upper echelon too, man. They all got dirty together, and when it all kind of turned nasty and blood was spilled, man, it turned into a huge fiasco. And we see those kind of social boogeymen today,
figures of some sort.
Man, they put people up and kind of create fear out of it, and they use that fear to control people, and they keep programming people through television. I haven't had television for years. I don't watch it. I got Hulu and I stream like shows because I like the art of storytelling, but I don't consume like TV,
like sitcoms and commercials and news.
Not unless it's good. Yeah. I seek out independent journalists usually, and I look at in all kinds of perspectives for the answers,
So we just stopped really watching the news, and we stopped, like, I kind of chilled out on the whole reading online articles, and we just kind of like, we've just been going straight to like official documents and court proceedings and transcripts and stuff like that. And you learn a lot. It takes a lot of time to do that, but you learn a lot more, and then you can base your own opinion on said things, and that's partially what we were talking about with Manson earlier, because both of us like listened to him in a more open-minded sense, understood what he was saying when he says it. Now, for most people, it sounded like psychobabble or just spooky, ooky fucking poetry.
Yeah.
But like both of us, we were conditioned that this guy was the most evil man. He was nothing but trouble.
Yeah.
And he is like the poster child for what to not be and what will happen to you when it does, when they do come for you. And we're seeing that right now. Like, well, I don't know who would be the poster child yet, but we're still early on in the happenings. But I don't know. It's just weird how everything is just happening all over again. And why is Justin Bieber the new Charles Manson? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Isn't that weird though?
Well,
Makes you think.
He, well, like you said, I started watching his interviews and listening to him talk. And I'm like, there's something not adding up to the story I was led to believe. Like
Exactly.
you said, you know, he's a crazy cult leader. He brainwashed people. I was like, yeah,
killed so many people. I'm like, what?
He's clearly angry. He's very frustrated. But the things he's saying, although he speaks in riddles a lot and he dances around the truth, I think both to not incriminate himself or what he knows about what happened. I mean, I think he was an accomplice, but I think he was a side character. See, people, when he was on trial, man, his friends, like the dozens, were crawling on their hands and knees to plead for this guy to be released. You know, he wasn't some cult leader. And all that did was fuel the fire, because now you have the suits and ties. So like, look, he's clearly a cult leader because these people are going so far out of their way to stick up for him, you know?
Yeah, he's an enemy.
Yeah, exactly. He's an enemy. Yeah. And all anybody wanted was for this guy to have his rights and his fair time in court. Because, you know, he'd been in and out of courts his whole life. He knew when it was a work and when it was going to be legit. Just like I said, watching wrestling, I know when it's fake and I'm being played. So, you know, I think he knew the position he was in and he couldn't control it. So over the years, and especially in his later life, he talks a lot about, like you said, his philosophy really is outward, and it's about nature and about how human consumption and rampant industrialization has destroyed our ecosystem. And people don't want to hear that. They were like, he's crazy. You know, what's he talking about?
And then it came true.
You're exactly. Yeah. He called it because he, you know, being somebody who's incarcerated, he's sat in a box and watched the world unfold in front of him. So it gives him a perspective that's unique to anyone else, because, you know, we get caught up in the grind of
we're always looking at our feet.
Yeah.
We don't look above.
Looking at our watch.
Yeah.
Looking at our phone, looking for a distraction.
And that's the thing. Like, I keep saying, and that's the thing. But, you know, even you and I, we were talking about 9 to 5s, and I know I talked about this on the podcast, but it's like, you really, like, even, like, it's like instilled in you. Like, you just can't do it. So it's either you become a Manson type, I guess.
Or complete freedom, man.
Yeah,
even if you're locked in a cell, you know.
Yeah.
That's his thing. He goes, you can put me in a box, but I'm still free in my mind, you know?
Yeah.
So it's an interesting
which kind of brings me back to the COVID thing.
Yeah.
You know, we've been all locked in, so to speak. Granted, some not as much as others, but
and some to extreme measures, man, where they've really isolated on their own accord, you know?
Yeah, and that's people like in our families and even like you guys, our friends, have been like, you guys can go out a little bit, you know, it's because they've like literally family members were like worried about me and like her, and they're like, are you guys like okay? And I'm like, honestly, like this is normal. Like we're free. Like everything is fine. Like granted, everything is not fine. Like I'm not saying there isn't a problem happening or whatever, but I'm saying that like it didn't imprison us in our homes.
Didn't destroy you or cripple you, you know?
Yeah. And even you, like, granted, people can argue if they want, like, oh, it's easier when you're with someone, whatever, but it's even yourself. Like, you didn't let your walls be your prison. You know, you expanded. It's like your mind wandered the world. You know, literature, the tales and the stories of the old days where things were a lot more brutal or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, same thing with Manson and same thing with wrestling. No, I'm just kidding.
It's everything is everything, man.
It's what you make it.
Right. You know, I went for walks, you know. I spent a little time watching my little nephew, but that was it, you know. And I wasn't necessarily worried about my health, but the health of my 90-year-old grandma or my pregnant little sister or my my mom and her stepdad, I worry about their health, not my own recklessness. So I just stayed responsible and kind of chilled at home and got antiquated. I'm making up words, man, on the fly.
Hey, that's what it is all about.
No, man, just mess around the house a little bit, We take for granted the beaten path, so
like you were saying, even
yard work here.
Yeah, like you were saying, even like it was nice to just take a break and like relax. Not relax, but
no, I did. I absolutely relaxed because I think our society has this wound so damn tight, and you probably learned from your travels. It's not specifically to America, but America is unique with it. There's maybe a couple other cultures that go and grind as hard as us, but I really think us as a people, as a culture, we're like getting ready to snap,
Yeah.
So this was like a step out of the batter box, take a breath, check your swing, and kind of decompress, A lot of people bucked it, but I think it really helped things,
Yeah. Because then you can take a step back and be like, oh, I fucked that part up. Let me try this again.
Just in life, man.
Yeah.
Just a gut check, because we grind so hard and we don't spend time relaxing and living in the moment.
Like I remember a lot of people were like, it's just nice to take a break, spend time with my family. Like we don't have kids or anything, but like people were like, well, it's nice to like actually spend time with my kids. And I'm like, it took a pandemic for people to realize that spending time with their children or their loved ones is like important.
Yeah.
And
Valuable.
even same thing with like us musicians, like we spend, I mean, you've been not Serpents yet, but in our past bands, like we've spent most of the year on the road, stuff like that. Like I barely had a home life. Like I've said this before, like everyone around me, started getting homes, babies, stuff like that. And I was always
mortgages. I see it too, families, careers, all that happy, shiny pictures. But then I think about the backside of that where they're, $1 million in debt and they're like, I'm going to be working until I'm 80.
Yeah.
So, everything's got a double edge to it.
And we're not shitting on it. We're not shitting on
whatever your choice and path is.
Yeah. But, it's also precious to listen to people like yourself or myself, because we are those nomad storytellers. We are the beatnik around the fucking campfire with the guitar. I mean, I don't know about the girls. Maybe they'll come by soon. But, like...
I hope.
Hey, party. But, it is... Another thing that podcasts are special in that light, because people can listen to people like us. Like, obviously, Manson... and I'm just using Manson or even Aleister Crowley, whoever. Like, Manson had a lot of interviews that have never seen the light of day, stuff redacted from court documents that were pretty meaningful, like even like stuff about God, like you were saying.
Yeah, in his trial, in his court testimony, you can pull it up on the LA.gov, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And they've redacted parts of his speech when he took the stand, which, interestingly enough, they emptied the courtroom before he talked. The prosecution argued that he brainwashed the jury and they'd be convinced of his innocence, so they had to be removed so they could kind of scan his comments. So he get up there and he said this huge long spiel, and he got pretty religious at times, and that's some of the stuff that was edited out of the official website. Yeah, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like they want to paint a picture of him or something.
Weird.
So he gives this huge speech. He lets it out, and the whole trial was a circus anyway. There was no defense, no witnesses, just he took the stand one time. So afterwards they say, okay, Mr. Manson, we'll let the jury come back in. Do you want to repeat all that? And he goes, no, I've said everything I had to say. Because he was on death row, man. He knew this whole thing was going to come down on him.
Yeah.
And it didn't. He lived a long time against the odds, which, might tell you something or might not. I'm sure people are like, this guy's fucking crazy, thinks Manson is wise. Well,
yeah.
Everybody's still got deep-grained biases,
Same thing with Crowley. Like we were talking about earlier, they said he was the most evil man in the world.
In bed with the devil.
Yeah, and it's like, I showed the lizard actually got me like a rare copy of the Book of the Law, and for the first time she's like read, the anything regarding Crowley, and she was like, this is actually very insightful, it's very beautiful. And she's like she read the intro, and it's like literally talking about how people like us are ostracized or ridiculed and cast out from society. And during these times of like struggle, and during these like times, like you said, when shit is about to snap, it's people like us. And I'm not sucking my own dick here or sucking your balls, whatever. I'm just saying it's like the world needs voices like ours. The world at the time needed someone like Crowley. They needed someone like Manson and many others. And honestly, like, it's cool that I have the opportunity to sit here and do a podcast with, myself, like-minded people, where we can spread these nuggets of truth, so to speak, because like you said, everything is a work right now. Like, you can smell bullshit. There's people telling the truth. And most of the time, the people that are telling the truth are the ones suppressed in our society. It's kind of cool. It's kind of cool, but fucked up to see that. And if you guys have never read the Book of the Law, check out like the intro. Literally talks about, how pretty much people like that are treated in society. And it really makes me think that with all that's happening, what the next figure, the next poster child is going to be.
Next sacrifice to the altar of ideas and speech and exploration. I mean, dude, it goes all the way back to Socrates, He was an old man carpenter who was into philosophy, and he just kind of was out there rapping with the kids in the streets, and the state was like, bro, you're poisoning the masses, you're committing thought crimes, you gotta go.
Same thing with Jesus, or the person we know as Jesus.
Absolutely.
He's Martin Luther King.
Yeah.
I mean, how many people are spreading good word, or not even good word, just positive
awareness.
Thoughts, positive thoughts, awareness, encouraging people to question.
Yeah.
Same thing with Manson, same thing with Crowley, same thing with myself, same thing with anybody. Like
Jesse Ventura.
My man. Fuck, dude. Jesse Ventura, Alex Jones.
For president. Yeah, Alex Jones. He's crazy. Maybe he's the new Manson because he's crazy, but there's a lot of truth in the craziness he spews. Like, I love his interviews with Joe Rogan because Joe knows how to kind of corral Alex, who's like a wild bull, and he kind of can get him on a thread or a point long enough to explain himself. And then you kind of sit and scratch your chin and you're like, wow, I know some of that is pretty accurate. So
comes from a good place.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
He's just excited. And I think he's a cessationalist too, man. He amps it up. Have you ever heard, it's called the Alex Jones Prison Planet? And I can't say who wrote the music, but they basically, there's a couple EPs where they chop together his rants and they put it to like some metal, bro. It rips. It's real good.
Yeah, like he's almost like you were just saying, he's kind of like a Manson type where there's nuggets of truth, but masked in ridiculousness. And we were talking about this earlier, like even the Bible, like there's allegories galore, but if you take it face value, you're really not going to get what it's actually saying. And same thing with Jones, like dude is talking about some crazy shit, but there is always something in there that is a nugget of truth.
Right.
And I think that's his survival instinct. I think he does that to save himself, like how Manson did. He's like, whatever.
Yeah.
I said what I need to say, and it's out there,
Yeah, that could be very
and I don't know. And even what's it called? We were even back to music. Like we say what we have to say, we mask it in a certain way, but it's there for whoever wants to see it or wants to find it, And I just think it's really cool. It's really cool to see how prevalent the story is these days. And we're telling a story right now, like as we're talking on this podcast.
Well, I think aside from the essential workers, the people that keep the infrastructure of society running, the other saviors of the day and the unspoken heroes is it's us artists. That's what's kept people going through this time of introspection and slowing down and stopping.
Yeah, it's odd how all of a sudden, like, the world stops and artists are like, I don't know if you saw.
They need us, bro.
Well, I don't know if did you see the Spotify CEO?
Mm-mm.
Well, he was talking, shout out to Spotify, I guess. Don't pull me. But, he was talking about, it was like a seminar, and he was like, artists are expected to release, new things constantly, not every 3 to 4 years. I feel like that was a slight to me.
Yeah.
Because I took 4 years to do 10 Minute Jose. No, but it's crazy how everyone else could take a moment, but us artists have to work overtime right now because the world fucking needs us.
Right. To entertain them. Dance, monkey, dance.
Yeah. To entertain them, yeah, but also you have the other side where people need guidance, they need enlightenment.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we're doing. And you have your upper echelon types, or you have your normal average Joe taking on the upper echelon characteristics and thought policing his fellow man, his fellow friend, his fellow artists. And, we're seeing that all over the place. Everybody is policing each other, stifling their fucking thought process. Like I call it thought police.
Yeah.
It's like fucking 1984, not the actual year, but like it's crazy how the world needs us, but we're also the ones like under the gun at the moment. It's weird.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like even Lividity has had an issue in the recent, I guess, weeks, and it's completely, like you can explain it a little bit, right?
Yeah, sure. So one of the members, I don't know, maybe he had an exciting morning and he got to post in some of his personal opinions, and it was, you could tell it was kind of a shit post, but he had hit all the buttons, right? I'm a white male.
Seemingly on purpose, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. Knowing him, he likes pushing buttons, but he's not politically minded, so I just didn't understand the motivation. He says, I'm a conservative and I'm a white guy and blah, 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 blah. So people were real pissed. And a couple of us in the band, me and the drummer especially, felt it was just a bad look and didn't represent the band because, it's not my beliefs. I kind of think the opposite. So it'd be one thing if that was the point of what we do, because we get enough shit just for the obscenity we already kind of play on, right? With the gore and the porno intros. It's kind of tongue in cheek and it's very over the top, but it's at the end of the day, it's just about good riffs and having a fun show. And I think it's kind of satirical the way we're so over the top about what we do. So he gave his personal opinion, and people come unglued. They're like, fuck this band, fuck this guy, cancel him, get him. And of course, there was the people that agreed. They're like, no, yeah, fuck yeah, preach it. And to me, man, I think everybody's allowed to their opinions. And I think us as a band decided to come out and say, look, he spoke off the cuff. That's his beliefs, he's entitled to them, but that doesn't represent us or the band. It was just a poor move. And if it was something that we were going to do intentionally to piss people off, we would have planned it way better. You know what I'm saying? We would have made the work,
But, it's weird. Like, I keep saying it's weird. I'm sorry. This is the first interview podcast. Oh, not interview, just chat. Fireside chat in the Manor. But, like, it's strange. How about that? Strange.
Yeah, for sure.
It's strange that, like, you have the people, like you said, that came like glue to, like, honestly, like, I didn't know about it until I saw like random people posting about your band, Lividity. And I'm like, oh, that's my guy's band. Like, what are they saying? And I'm like, oh no, like, what's going on? And then I saw what was going on, and I'm like, damn, like, thankfully he said, this is me. This is my thought, and it doesn't represent you guys, but obviously you guys are a band, you fucking brothers, like whatever, you have each other's back, and it's weird. Like I said it again. It's weird that like fans, like they'll accept the gore, they'll accept the obscene lyrics and whatever, and then they won't accept you guys for like you being yourself. And that's what I'm saying. Like when I'm trying to bring this all together, like people are taking on the role of the upper echelon, like we were talking about, and they're policing each other. And oddly enough, in a time where artists and entertainers and whatever are very important to the fabric of our lives, we're all under attack for no apparent reason.
Right. I think people are agitated, man. They're angry and they don't have an outlet to place their rage. And I'm not
and that's
judging,
okay.
Right. I'm not judging anybody for their motivations. Everybody has their own angle, and a lot of people are justified, so I'll throw that out there. But honestly, we lost some fans over it. And like you said, the art is okay, as extreme and offensive as it is, but we don't support it because one of them guys is an asshole, in their opinion, right?
Yeah.
And it felt kind of weird having to apologize, but I think it was just more of a clarification that, he's talking shit. I wish he'd just kept it on his personal page, and I wouldn't have cared. Because when he made it a band statement, it reflected on us as well.
Yeah.
So, if we're all in the same boat, then sure, no problem. But, we're not anal cunt. We're just trying to be offensive to be offensive. To
Ruffle feathers.
Yeah. To me, I don't think that's what Lividity is about at all. The offensive nature is kind of tongue in cheek,
Yeah.
We're not just being assholes to be assholes, So, I don't know.
It's just I'm just trying to paint that picture that like
that we're under scrutiny, and it's death metal, man. It's fucking death metal. How are you going to be like? And people were giving us mad shit, bro. We got shit on for saying we're sorry, and we get shit on. For
you get shit on anyways.
So we're gonna just apologize for everything, on behalf of everybody, everywhere, for everything, man. I'm just sorry. I'm sorry for all of the shit, Yeah. And I really am. I think any empathetic person probably does feel a bit of sorrow for all the ugliness we're experiencing as one living species,
Yeah. It's like we didn't like you feel like the world has enough of that, and there's no reason. Like everybody has fucking bad days. Obviously, dude had a bad day probably.
Yeah,
and that's granted. Everybody listening to this has had a bad day and said some shit that they really didn't mean, but you're not done. You're not terminated for that. You know what I mean? Like, it's very strange to see how all of this is unraveling, but at the same time, I'm really, really, I want to clarify to anyone listening is to, we're not the artists and people like us or whoever, truth seekers, whoever. We're not the normal person. We do strange things. We live strangely, and I really don't think that we should burn everybody at the stake because they're not following what's it called, the hive mind, the
PC, man.
PC even. I mean, I get it. I get it to an extent, but to hunt and the
witch hunt, it's become like a form of a religion. I think so many people are growing up now secular and without belief, so they're drawn to this idea of virtue, right? And I believe in expression, man. People need to be open and communicate, man. People should exchange ideas and not default on their feelings and knee-jerk reactions, because when people can talk, usually they find out they're kind of wanting the same thing or in agreement about life and everything about it. But artists aren't afraid to kick around them dark corners of the mind and explore the human psyche where a lot of people don't want to dig in, man, because they're going to find ugliness in themselves. and they've already tried to mask the ugliness in the world and dumb themselves down. So the last thing they can do is accept their own demons, and everybody's battling something.
Yeah. And that's even a thing you and the lizard like dove in on yesterday. Like both of you have like very varying opinions, but you both had a 5-hour plus long stream of like consciousness that didn't end in you being like, go fuck yourself, fuck you, you're stupid, blah, 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 I'm leaving, tell Andrew I fuck, you know what I mean? Like, that's the thing, like, back to what we were talking about the human experience and seeing shows and smelling the sweat, and it's discourse, like healthy discourse is something that is going fast. Like,
it's lost.
You
need it back.
Yeah, like, you don't agree with me, you're gone.
Right.
Like, goodbye, delete. It's like that. The delete is like these days, like you're fucking exiled from my life or whatever, and it's an ugly truth. But I feel like even if people were mad at you guys for whatever he said, like instead of grabbing the pitchforks, they should have talked to you guys, or like anybody out there that's saying anything. You're immediately going to have someone with their foot down your throat being
blow
like,
back.
Yeah. And it's like, submit to my way or whatever. And I'm like, I'm seeing this unravel, and I'm like, man, this could even happen with like occultists, like people like myself, people who, look for esoteric truth, hidden knowledge, whatever the fuck you want to call it. It's like that could be considered like heresy in the near future, and it's fucking scary. It's weird. Like the truth seekers, artists, whoever that we've been harping on, it's like, what's to say, like we're not acceptable anymore in our society, and yet we work you to the bone, and then you're done. Like, all right, we don't need you anymore. Goodbye. You know what I mean? Like, I'm talking about more like,
the grind.
Yeah, the grind.
And they want to take your humanity out of the equation in the process, and that's where the artist shines, because he's tapping into the humanity. I mean, if they come after us, bro, the cancel culture is nothing new. They did it in the 80s. They did it in the 60s. They did it, blah, 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 all the way back to Salem witch trials. I mean, if it comes back to it, then you and I will testify in front of Congress, just like Dee Snider and Frank Zappa did.
Yeah.
I'll be there.
Yeah, and you're not
Alice
talking
Cooper.
about coming at us like cancel culture, like as we know it right now. I mean, we're talking about
worst case scenario. Yeah,
we're talking about the cancel culture of like our school of thought, like the left-hand path or whatever. It's like,
exactly.
If that is deemed unacceptable, which could be a reality, like, even like
worst case scenario, man. When you get, like you said, 1984, where you have thought crimes and social conditioning, and you got to think one way and only that way. It's a slippery slope, and you don't want it to go that far, but you can't assume that it's not a possibility.
Well, it's just like the Kabbalion by I think it's called the Three Initiates. I forgot, but the pendulum. They talk about the pendulum. You are practiced, yoga, a bunch of other stuff, martial artists, like yin and yang, like
the Tai Chi.
There is. I think that we're heading towards this way, but I think people will start to realize, that hey, like we need to remember that people are human, and we are the human species, and we need to go the other way. And I
Bring
think
it back.
The pendulum is probably at its height at the other end, and I think soon people are going to realize to care for each other and respect each other's ideas, even if they don't mesh with what you're about. Like, even with the Lividity thing, like, I didn't write you out of my life. Like, you're a friend, and same thing with other things people have said. It's I even pulled them to the side and like, I'm a busy guy. But I took the time and be like, I mean, you did that as well to me. You know, you pull them aside and you're like, hey, like, what's this about?
Let's
like,
talk about it.
What's that really about? And then, you know, you weren't like, you're fucking stupid. I'm out of the band.
Right.
Peace. You know, and same thing with you. Like, you know, I saw that and I was like, nah, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. I'm going to talk to him about it. And, you know, I think that's the beauty. And I think that's something that people need to rediscover when they're doing that introspective transformation that we talked about earlier. It's like you need to find that beauty, the yin and yang, the pendulum, so to speak, the light and the darkness.
Man. Harmony.
Exactly. Harmony. Like if you look at the Kabbalah, the Klipoth, whatever, like the middle sphere is Tippereth, or beauty, balance. That's what it all stands for. And it's not a part of the tree of life or the tree of death. It's its own thing, because that is what you need to get to the other points. And I know I sound crazy right now, like
no,
talking
not at all,
about
bro.
this, but you know, I think we're heading towards the beauty, the balance, and shit. You know, you, the lizard, myself, we've all talked about, you know, shit that happened in 1967 is extremely similar to what's happening now. And then Manson gets locked up, or a trial in the 70s.
Yeah, 67 was when he got released and got tied in with the hippies.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, that took time to get to normal.
Right.
Like this, this, what we're talking about right now, you know, getting to the balance and stuff. Listen, I'm not talking about that like overnight. Hey, we're going to be good next month. Like, this is going to take years.
Yeah.
But when that happens, refer back to this podcast and be like, damn, they were onto something. Because
called it here.
Because I mean, everybody I've talked to thinks that the world is ending, and I keep saying, yeah, the world is ending. Yeah. The world as we know it, is ending.
Like a snake shedding its skin, you know, or a caterpillar coming out of a cocoon. I think there's certain ways the life is living.
The Ouroboros, the snake biting its tail. It's the
Jormungand, the world serpent.
It's a symbolic for cyclicity.
Exactly.
Like, this is an old concept, and it's still prevalent today. I don't see why we can rule out the 60s happening all over again. Right. You know?
You know, it's unfinished business, I think, is circled back around, and we're digging it up, and we're going to hopefully resolve those issues, man. And we as a species can move forward, and us artists can create, and workers can work, and people can get on with their lives. Man, love, bro. Yeah. Love is a good thing. Because, you know, loving somebody is like loving and understanding yourself. You know, once you learn to appreciate life through somebody else's experience, man, how can you not love them?
Yeah.
Because we're all have our own unique perspective, and we all have something to contribute. And I think we all have talents that together we make this big giant network and kind of web of human activity and creativity.
And that's the thing. That's you just said it right there. Everybody has something to contribute. If you stifle that person completely, you will never understand the beauty of that person, that artist, band, entertainer, whoever the fuck, politician, whatever.
Right.
They have something to contribute, good or bad. But either way, you can learn from it. It is what you make it. And I think that's probably what I'm going to call this podcast.
Find the balance, man. Find your balance. Find your inner peace. If you're raging out, do something that calms you down. If you're morose and slow, find something that breathes life into you. Find your balance, you know?
I think that's a good place to wrap this up. Do you have anything you want to tell the folks listening at home? I put you on the spot, but
nah, bro, I've talked enough. That was my closing statement. We didn't even talk about astrology. We'll get into that the next one.
Wow.
Real esoteric shit.
Jesus Christ.
So, hey, I appreciate this, brother. This was really fun.
I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like I said earlier, this is the first kind of one-on-one that we've done, and I would like to do more. I want to have more voices from our community, you know, talk and give their 2 cents, and hopefully if you guys enjoyed this, let me know. If not, let me know. But don't tell Jake. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
But I don't know. That's a thing that I think is important, and I would like to experiment and hear from other people. And I don't want to do, I don't want to talk to people about, tell me about your tour, or tell me about your album and stuff like that. I want to talk to people as people. Like, we've both been in the business for a long time, and when someone's sitting here fucking blowing smoke up your ass, and
Oh yeah.
it's usually when they're sitting there talking about their career and whatnot, Right. It's like, we have enough of that. So I would like to do more of these. If you guys want some more, I'm sure I could call upon the powers that be to come chat with me here in the Manor. But yeah, if you guys enjoy this, please make sure that you rate the podcast, comment on the podcast. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast. We are on all streaming platforms. I think we literally just started being distributed in India, so that's really cool. So if anyone from India is listening, hello, how are you?
Yeah. Good day.
Good day.
Salutations.
But it's very cool, and I'm excited that, like, even voices like ours, and this is kind of like what I was harping on, really taking in the perspective of people like, I guess, like us, like that's really not heard of in India. Like, it's very, like, they have like political control on what they're allowed to really take in, right?
I guess.
Yeah. I at least that's what I heard, I don't know. I might be wrong, but I'm thankful that they are allowed to listen to stuff like this. But I'm going to stop talking. But if you guys want to jump in, you want to ask some questions, if you want to interact, you want to tell me how, stop saying weird, it's weird, fucking join our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/the6M podcast. That's THESIXM podcast. Join our Facebook group. Fucking let's get the conversation going. Let's get the conversation going. That's Garth Brooks.
Oh man, I believe you.
It's, hey, while Facebook's still up, right? Fucking jump in. And like I've been saying in the past recent episodes, we're not gigging right now. We're not really allowed to gig. So two main things I'm asking you to do. The show doesn't have a sponsor, so Serpents is the sponsor at the moment. So please, if you haven't already, go to Spotify, type in Serpents U.S., go follow us on Spotify, add us to your favorite playlists. Literally every listen counts. I see everybody's playlists. I see who's jamming out on what kind of playlists we're on, all that good stuff. So if you have a workout playlist, anything like that, throw us on there. We greatly appreciate it. And the second thing, if you haven't already, go to our YouTube at youtube.com/user/weareserpents. Go subscribe to our YouTube channel. We got a lot of cool stuff coming. We got a Q&A in the pipeline. We got some gear reviews in the pipeline. I might get these guys to do some videos for you all, but we really, really could use the support, because every subscription matters and it counts. So subscribe to us if you haven't already, so I can convince these guys to fucking make more videos, because they won't do it.
I like it. Convince us, people.
Yeah, convince them.
Yeah,
No,
tell us how much we're wanted.
Yeah, do that. But yeah, it was great talking to you on the podcast, and I hope you guys enjoyed, and I hope you guys are spreading the love and questioning everything.
That's right. Peace out, everybody.
Peace.